a loss here would have ended the season and ended the film and maybe ended Coach Pettin's career if he had decided that way to do that. But another great run by Dave Camburn, incredible.
I was also convinced that this game was obviously going to be a, you know, Junior's redemption. I really felt like he was so upset, and this was his shot, and I was just stunned, frankly, to see that if they just. That, I was so impressed with the kids, frankly, after this game that they didn't lose the focus. They didn't lose. They didn't get overconfident, and they came out and took care of business. It was really neat.
Yeah, as you see there in the back, Andrew Elsing just yelled, and he was starting to become a motivator. Andrew Elsing, who blocked the punt at the CB East game a couple games earlier, right there, he just caught a catch. That's how versatile this kid was, and that was his attitude. I'll do whatever it takes for my team.
Well, you see him starting to emerge, as we said, and you start to see him start to be more of a vocal leader and step into that role that we said that we thought was missing at the beginning of the year, which was a guy who's a vocal leader that everyone on the team respects, and he certainly was that. He was well respected and well liked and respected as a player, and so I think that really helped kind of glue the team as they moved on in these really hard games at the end of the year.
Important point right there. If you saw, Pettin whispered into Junior's ear, "That was your last shot, buddy." Okay, basically, he just told his son that he's retiring. He's not going to play again against him. But that's not something he told anyone else. And so right now you see a reporter ask him, "Hey, is that the last shot for Junior?" And like a presidential candidate, Pettin sidesteps it, very very eloquently and defers the answer, and nobody knew what his answer was, and so that was part of something we were privy to. We knew, we had an idea that right here he
We
reached a
shot it
decision.
ourselves, and we didn't even know though, so we didn't even pick it up till
Yeah,
later
until we
in the
watched the
editing booth.
footage, and
So
this is
yeah,
him. This is him telling us. This is him telling us. Besides telling his family, he just told us, which was really incredible to have that access. I mean, he didn't have to tell us, but he told us, and we knew then that the rest of the season became crucial.
and it was really hard for me because I just remember thinking, I wish these kids knew because maybe they would change their approach or play harder or whatever. But the fact was, you couldn't tell them, and they had no idea. So,
Yeah,
you figured it'd be a great motivating factor, but you couldn't tell them. So,
right. And he, you'll see, it's not really giving anything away to say that he doesn't tell his team until much later, and so he that's how selfless this guy is. He didn't he didn't use it to pull anything out of his team. He it was a private decision about his life, which he withheld from telling everybody because he didn't want the focus ever to be on him, and that's part of what made him such a class act.
and here's one of my favorite lines in the movie. Once again, Tim standing from afar, getting this great moment between Pettin and a coach. Obviously they don't know they're being filmed, and it was great. We shot them on Canon XL1s, which obviously why the film. It's got a great look, and we shot with progressive scan, which is also why it doesn't have that flat video look. It
Yeah,
was
we were able
really
to take advantage of great technological advancements that happened, and the as independent filmmakers, this is a great time to make indie films, and we won't get into that whole area except to say we were able to take advantage of cheap equipment, and this is great. Just to jump around, this is a little bit of a they're forbidden to party and to do anything like that, and we were able to get our hands on some footage of these guys hanging out, and who knows if what was really going on there. We have no idea since we're too old to be part of that scene. But they're kids, and this coach, didn't know, but he was
well.
suspecting.
Apparently, yeah, this was a speech that I was concerned. I thought something had happened, and some kids were going to go down. And I asked one of the kids after the team, and supposedly that's
It's
a
a
common
con.
speech that he likes to give. That there's some anonymous guy telling him about it, so to get everybody worried that they might get in trouble.
Yeah, this is Becca. This is the second,
Yeah, we're now in the semifinal, and now the last two teams are two Catholic schools who were able to recruit. So again, we're going up against teams that are very talented, and
these people are very friendly right there. Yeah, yeah. The intensity went up. I think, didn't you feel? I mean, even though Junior was a big game with North Penn. These fans were feverish. I mean,
Well,
they were
and
very intense.
they're from Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is a famous blue collar town, and football is taken very seriously up there, and the whole and they really wanted to beat CB West. They were tired of CB West, being the
Actually,
reigning title.
they're from Bethlehem, which people make that, but it's really close. It's like the sister. My wife's from Allentown, but I remember we called them from Allentown, and some of the fans got really mad because that's how serious they took it. No, we're from Bethlehem, which is hence the name Becca High, which is their name, Bethlehem Catholic. This is an incredible. I love this moment. This guy, Coach Schmidt, is just he's just great, and this is how intense he was, and you know, it's just an amazing thing to see these guys in their element because you can see how good they are at what they do.
Well, you see there, that's just the sort of speeches that they sort of prepare, how to motivate these kids. Every week they're trying to find new angles to get these kids motivated. So this week it was talking about how far he has to come as
Yeah,
an analogy. So
exactly.
it was just funny. There was one time where Schmidt had gone up to two of the players and told him how he was at a game the night before, hearing two assistant coaches talk badly about these two players. And 5 minutes later, I walked over and he told me, he'd made the story up.
Yeah,
It was
these
really
guys,
funny.
yeah, they would tell little white lies here and there. It was great. It was all good natured and it was all for the good of the kids. But they love these kids, and that's something that seems to be understood is that they loved what they did and they loved the kids, and it was a very positive atmosphere, and we're convinced that it was a great approach and it's a great community, and the parents, every week they would have this great, they would cook meals for the kids. There was incredible support from the school, from the parents, and from everyone. This is Angelo Polina, one of the better players on the team that we talked about. He's the guy that's sensitive and didn't like to get criticized much, but he's a great player.
And it's significant in this game because he has a very good game, and it leads to why he quits the following week, because he doesn't get one of the defensive MVP awards, and just shows how much these kids are, obviously they use motivation tactics for these defensive awards, and you see how serious it is obviously to these kids because Polina obviously was very unhappy.
This team, obviously, Becca here, they just scored, and as you'll hear, the first time all season that they've been down. So this is a very intense game, and
Incredible moment because, for the first time, they're facing adversity. They hadn't faced real adversity all year on the field. They faced some off the field, and for us as well, it was like this shock. Everybody was sort of in shock because they'd never been behind. So it was a really amazing moment to see everybody kind of reacting to that for the first time in basically 2.5, 3 months.
It's true. And this is the state of the locker room. I mean, very dejected. As you can see, they're very affected. They're human, so they didn't take it in a way that they didn't take it like champions initially. They were shook up, and it took the leadership of Andrew Elsing right here and the coaches to rally them.
Absolutely.
I mean, it really took some psychological influence, and Pettin does so right here.
Well, what I loved about this scene is that, usually the great thing about Pettin was when they're ahead by 20 points, he's in the halftime, he's yelling and screaming. And now they're down, and you see him, he's as calm and as cool as he's ever been the whole year. So, he knew exactly when to be intense. I mean, he was a, master psychologist in that regard. I mean, he always knew when to push the right buttons and pull back. And then obviously it was effective because, they came out and played their asses off in the second half.
Dustin again this is an incredible shot, actually. Incredible tackle by one of their best players on Camburn. But you'll see, Dustin played really well this game, but he really met his match in terms of this 46 on the other team, who has a couple instances where he stops him. And you'll see it here and a couple other places where if it wasn't for this guy, Dustin would have run roughshod like he did with every other team. So they really met their match here.
It really wasn't. And Tim teases me a lot about this because during this game, because of the whole year, we'd pretty much led every game, and I as a former football player, I was felt like I was in these games as it was happening. So sometimes I had a problem as a cameraman that I would just the camera during this game a few times just dropped from my eye down to my waist because I was just got so absorbed by what was happening. A few times, many times.
And then Alex, the next game nails it. He was on the sideline, I was in the end zone, and the next game in Erie, which was the championship game, he was flawless. So he learned his lesson quickly that we had to detach ourselves, and it was hard at times because we were emotionally involved with these guys. We loved them, and we were part of the team, and even though we were not players, we felt like we had been lifelong fans. So it was hard.
It was a great...
time out. Here's our wives. We got a shout out to our very supportive wives there. Alex, wife Kathy on the left and Tanuja on the right. And they were really supportive to us. We worked very hard on this, and they were there. And to be the wife of independent filmmakers is not easy. Let's just say that.
Not fun at all. So.
And it helps if they have good credit. So, really, they had terrific support for us, and we can't thank them enough. But there's another great hit on Dustin there, and this is something that happened in this game. These guys got stuffed with their bread and butter, which was the run game, and they had to, as you can see there, Pettin, has a moment of physical weakness, and you begin to see this guy's human, and this guy's obviously like any character, he's flawed, but they are at a loss here, and it's a testament to a champion.
Well, you knew he was flawed. He may have had some flaws in his personality, but as a coach, he's so dominant. So to see some things unraveling a little bit was really powerful.
Mm-hmm. It's true
because you don't see it all year, and now look at it. I mean, here they are, and here to me, this is the most important play of the game or of the season too, as well. Because if that scores, they would have been down 2 touchdowns. And they hold on and not let them score right here. And Dave Camber and these little things that if they change, it's amazing with sports. One play goes differently, everything changes, and that's what you're going with a doc. Like one little thing changes, and our whole story is done. You don't have the happy ending. Elsing doesn't block the punt of that.
Yeah.
So
true.
All these little things. Life's in the details, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that was a guy named Potter, great defensive player, very small guy who really earned his way onto the team. And this, of course, is one of the great plays of the season. A perfectly executed wall. And, Elsing had that great block at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Elsing, who's done
Dave
so much.
Dave Camburn, another great play by Dave Camburn.
Dave Camburn's a great runner. There's Elsing with the lead block, boom. And
once again, Dave was a character we loved and we wanted to develop, but he's just the quietest kid we ever met. I mean,
so modest, so quiet.
Very modest, nicest kid in the world, but, in terms of for a film, it was not dynamic enough.
It was hard to communicate those things.
So,
but again,
on the field, he was as dynamic as anyone. So
he's as good as it gets on the field. So, and the kid, that should also be said. These are really nice kids. I mean, it was great working around them. And then there's Dustin with another touchdown, and by that time the game was in hand. And
yeah, it was amazing how this game suddenly went from, they were at the brink of losing it to just scoring 3 touchdowns in about 4 minutes.
Yeah,
I think the other team just suddenly realized what they were up against, and that was another mentality of this team, was that they were so well trained that no matter what happens, I had heard from another player that this team might be able to play with you for 3 quarters, but in the 4th quarter, because of their training, their weight training, they're one of the few teams that lifts weights up until the last week of the season. I mean, pushing it hard. I mean, they're one of the best weight programs in the state. So what happens and how it translates on the field is that when other kids are tired, they're not as tired. And you saw that was a perfect example in the 4th quarter. That it was close, and then they just leaned on them, and the game turned into almost a blowout. So once again, another testament to Mike Pettin and Mike Carey.
This is an interesting point. Here we are at the championship game, and one thing the reporter points out is that in all of America, Pennsylvania's was the only championship where a top 20 team was playing another top 20 team nationally ranked.
For a championship.
So, it's obviously not like college voting where you have sports writers and all that. obviously the high school ranking system is a lot more subjective, but it's interesting that we played such a great team for the championship. And here's one of the great moments of the whole movie. We captured this practice moment where Pettin is teaching him the very technique which saves their season. I mean, it's amazing. Telling him here how to block a punt, what to do better, and it happens.
Once again, yeah, fortunate for us.
Oh, incredible. Fortunate for them.
Well, actually, in the game, we didn't put it in the game before, but he had actually run into the place kicker on a field goal, and they ended up getting a first down,
Right.
which they ultimately scored on. So, obviously there was a real,
Yeah.
problem with Elsing's punt blocking. So,
Before we talk about Pelini here real quick, Mike Pettin was a religious man, so that last bit was an interesting thing. He was a man of great faith, and he made a little joke there about making a deal with the devil. Mike Pettin had a lot of faith, and that's what I think was behind a lot of his success. And here is Angelo Polina, and here's the incident. The last week of the season, and this guy has quit. Because he didn't get an award. And every story's got two sides, but that was the essence of it.
the essence was that, and that he didn't feel like he was going to get the recruitment for college that he felt he deserved, and that's another problem with some of these kids when you played a big time program. I mean, he was not big enough to play at the big time level, and he was a great high school player, but no one had told him except for these guys, and he thought they were just being mean to him basically when they were trying to be honest with him that he just doesn't have the size to play Division I, and no matter how good he was, and he didn't want to hear it, and that really upset him. And remember, that's what shows again that these guys are kids because their dreams are to play. They're at a big level right now of football, and they want to just continue that.
Right.
And not all of them can, and it's a big sort of letdown for every kid because you put so much time and effort into sports. Not every kid gets to go on and play sports on another level, whereas other kids, if have different academic pursuits.
This is an incredible scene that we were able to capture because Alex and I were able to kind of get it from both angles when the coach told us to stop, and through our teamwork and through our wireless mics, we were able to get what is probably the best stealth scene in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. That was just
working
combination of determination and luck. Luckily, I was filming, and Tim pulls up his car from the other angle and kept filming. And that's another idea as a filmmaker is keep the tapes rolling. They can always not let you use it in the final cut, but it's always worth having the footage. Never turn it off. I mean, you don't always have to use it, but we told him an hour later that we had shot that, and he was fine with it. But in that moment, he didn't want us to do that. So, that's the tricky part about documentaries, that people sometimes in that moment don't want you to film, but then 5 minutes later they could care less. So, it's a tricky thing. You got to be sensitive to the subject, but you also, if we would have missed that footage, it would bother me to this day.
Sure. And here's Elsing again leading the team, giving a little speech.